everyone, Vanessa here from Love Riley. Welcome back. Today I'm going to be sewing up this amazing bag. This is the Hopewell handbag and this is from Handmade. I had Hillary reach out to me via DM and say, would you mind testing my new pattern? And I was like, sure, send it through. When I saw that it was a circle bag, I must admit I was absolutely terrified because I'm not very good at curves and I wasn't sure how well I would do, but I was absolutely shocked at how well this turned out. This bag is quite amazing in the shape, the way that it comes together, and I was absolutely amazed at how much the bag changed in look once I added my zipper pull. It changed the bag completely and it was amazing. So this is obviously my front panel. My back is exactly the same as the front. I chose to do hidden strap connectors and added Chicago screws underneath. I added strap ends to the ends of my handles. I love the look of this gusset. It is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And these little side bits here are pockets. Like, how fantastic is that? So there's pockets on either side here. This was so simple to sew together. I've got a zipper end here. I've got a little fairy door zipper pull that I thought would suit this bag perfectly, so I've used that. Look at the inside of this bag. Like, it is huge. It is a birth bag. It's not got any binding on it. I just used waterproof canvas for my lining. It does have 2 slip pockets on either side of our lining. There is a lot of room in this bag. In terms of top stitching, I was a little bit stressed about how well I do with the top stitching. So when you do your top stitching, you've obviously got to go across and then across here and then sort of all the way around, and I wasn't sure how well I'd go getting these sides under my sewing machine, but it was absolutely fine. So what I did was I started halfway through this gusset here and came out and went around all the way around here and then across here and finished here, and it was absolutely perfect. I had no problems with the top stitching whatsoever. For a circle bag, I think I did pretty good. I was very shocked. So as you can see, it's got a very nice shape when it's open, but when it's closed, the shape changes dramatically and it's amazing. I love these pockets. I love these sides, how they poke out like this. It's fantastic. I was very happy to test this bag. Absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. So if you would like to see me make the Hopewell bag by Handmade, then please keep watching. Please go and get the pattern. If you end up getting the pattern and you sew one of these up, please feel free to join my Facebook group and show me what you've made. I'd love to see what you've chosen and what design you've come up with. Have an amazing day. Bye. Let's go over all of our pattern pieces. I've got my main panel here. I've got this printed through By the Bay Craft Supplies. I'll leave everything linked below. I've got 2 of my main panels. I've not stabilized this with anything. I've just basted foam onto the back of these. So I've got 2 main pieces. This waterproof canvas here, I also had custom printed through By the Bay Craft Supplies. So I've got 2 of my main lining pieces. I've not stabilized or interfaced these with anything. 2 of those. This accent vinyl I bought from a buy sell swap page. I know it's from Warwick Fabrics, but that's all I know. So I won't be able to link that. If I find something similar, I'll leave it linked below. This is my base piece. I've fused Decaville Heavy out of my seam allowances and then just basted that with foam. So I've got 1 base piece. I've got 2 connector pieces and I've just put Decaville Light in the center with double-sided tape. So 2 of those. I've got side top pieces, Decaville Light out of my seam allowances and then foam basted onto that. I've kept the foam in my seam allowances just because of the machine that I'm using, so 2 of those. These are my side bottom pieces, Decaville Light out of my seam allowances and foam on those 2 pieces as well, so 2 of those. These are my handles. I've not interfaced or stabilized these with anything. I've just put my line down the center and added double-sided tape. 2 of those. This teal coloured waterproof canvas, I cannot even remember where I got it from, but it frays a little bit, so I've just made sure to make allowances for that. So my large interior pocket, I cut 2 of these. The pattern calls for 1 for non-fraying material, so I've just cut 2 of these. So 2 of those. This is my small pocket. Again, I've cut 2 of these just because it frays. I believe the pattern only asks you to cut 1, but out of a non-fraying material. So I've got 2 of those. These here are for my exterior pockets. I've got 2 of these, and I've not stabilized or interfaced these with anything. This here is my lining gusset, 2 waterproof canvas, not interfaced, not stabilized. 2 of those. Hardware, zipper tape. I'm using this zipper tape here that I got through online bag supplies. I'll leave the link below. I've got my nameplate, I've got 4 square rings, I've got a strap end, and I've got 1 zipper pull, and it is so gorgeous. I believe I got this from Aussie Bag Supplies, but it's a little fairy with a door, and I thought it would match my main panel perfectly. Isn't it beautiful? So I've got 1 of those. If I've forgotten anything, I'll leave a note on the screen like I always do. So let's get on and sew the Hopewell handbag. The first thing that I'm going to do is start with my handle. I've marked my line down the center. I've added some double-sided tape. I'm going to fold the edges into just above and below that center line, and then I'm going to fold it over again and top stitch. So just below that center line. So when I do the top stitching on this, I'm going to do it at 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, and then 1/2 an inch, and that'll give me my 5 lines of stitching. This will be my first ever circle bag. I've never done a circle bag before. So I've left a gap in the center there. I'm just going to fold this over so that it's even on these edges here. I'm going to start with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on the outside. I've got a brand new needle, and this thread colour that I'm using from Pro Sew is number 1346. Eighth of an inch up the other side. And then I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch. And then 1/4 of an inch from the other end. So there's 4 rows so far, and then I'm just going to do 1 more right down the center. And that's our straps done. They're my 4 rows of stitching. We can pop those to the side. Next we need our side bottom pieces. In the pattern it tells us to go ahead and based on our piping. I'm not doing piping on this because my piping would be exactly the same colour as this. I'm just going to leave the piping. We need one of our exterior pocket lining pieces, and we're going to sew this together, right sides together, with the seam allowance given in the pattern. The seam allowance is given in the pattern for this. I'm just going to chain stitch these. Okay, we're going to top stitch. So I'm folding that back and top stitching. And I didn't even top stitch that. Oh my goodness, I did it at the wrong seam allowance. That's alright, I can do 2 rows. That's fine. Now let's top stitch. And I'll have to do 1/4 inch on this one so they match. Next, what you need to do is you need to flip up our lining piece. Next, what you need are your top side pieces. We're going to place this right sides together with the bottom of our lining. Right sides together. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Then we're going to open that seam and top stitch. So we're flipping this up and we're top stitching along the lining. So flip that up out of the way and top stitch. So my seam's underneath my lining. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to lift this up, and this is going to go along that top stitch line that we just sewed, and we're going to clip this together. So I'm lining this edge here up, this edge here, with this top edge of our lining that we just top stitched. Next, what we want to do is we want to baste these together. So I'm going to start up here, come down, I'm going to back stitch over this and then come all the way down. I'm going to start from the bottom up actually, and then nothing will move. So right where that pocket begins, and back stitching over that. And then you can just come in here and just trim down any excess pocket that you have. Oh, I love that. It's going to create like a little pocket. Again, I want to come from the bottom up because I do not want anything to shift. Trim down that pocket. So then this is what it looks like from the back. I might just trim some of this away just to reduce bulk. That's my pocket. So I can repeat for this side. So I'm bringing the bottom up to just where we stitched that lining, and I can baste this in place. Mine is quite thick there because I have used foam. Now while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and find the center top and bottom because we'll probably need those for later. Next we need our base piece, and you want to line that up with one of your bottom pieces, right sides together, and we're sewing this with the seam allowance given in the pattern. We're going to open that top stitch and then sew on the other side, and that'll complete our gusset. So folding that out and top stitching on the base. And I can come in here and just trim this down, just because I've used foam, so mine's quite thick there. Right sides together with our other bottom piece. Folding this out and top stitching on the base. And while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my seams together on my base and find the center of that as well, because we'll probably need that for later as well. And doesn't hurt to always find your centers. So that is our gusset complete. So we've got 2 pockets here. So it's going to be like that. How cute. Next we want our main panels. We need to work out which one's going to be our front. Mine are both exactly the same. And we need to mark the placement for our strap connectors. So find your centers. There are measurements given in the pattern suggesting where to put them. If you're using the connectors that are used by the pattern designer, I'm not. I'm using rectangle rings. There's my center there. I'm going to mark my center. This is a removable pen. And then from the center out, right there is where she suggests that we go down. And then from there, we want to mark a line there. So I'm going to use hidden strap connectors. So I've got these connectors that I did. These are 4 1/8 inch by 2. I just put a line of Decaville heavy down the center because you want this to be reinforced. So I'm just going to fold these into the center and top stitch. You don't see these, so this top stitching is more just to hold this together while I sew the bag. And I will need 4, not 2. I can use my hidden strap template that I got from Brimax and place these. So we're going to need that and a rectangle ring. So the guide here on this is going to show me where I need to cut my V in order to do my hidden straps. I'm lining that up in the center. So the top of my line is here. It's got a center measuring tool as well. So go ahead and mark that. And then this is where I'm going to make my cuts. There also is a template that Belinda has that is this. And this has got your rotary marks. So all you need to do is place it on there. Use your rotary cutter and you can cut it all at once rather than having to draw and then cut. This just works out for me because I'm terrible with a rotary. And that's where I'm going to make my cuts. What I'm also going to do while I'm here is in the center, I'm going to go 1/2 inch above. That's where I'm going to do my nameplate, because we have to take into consideration seam allowance. I can use my tool from Brimax, line that up, mark that, and then I can cut all of these at once. I can get rid of these marks for now. These are the slits that I need to cut for my nameplate. So now they're cut, I can get rid of those marks. And next I'm going to cut the marks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this shape here, and that is where my strap's going to go. There we go, that one's cut. This is a permanent pen, so you won't see that though when our connector's put in. So what we do is we push all this to the back. You can come in once you've cut all this and you can trim away this excess here because we really don't need that at the back. So that's going to be where my nameplate is. Next, we're going to do our hidden strap connectors. Now I've gone and I've done this side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my connector is wrong side up so I can see the seam, and I'm going to insert it from the top. This is just the way that works for me. So you can push your little V flap down and you want to put that through that hole that we made. So then this is what it looks like. You need to make sure though that you leave enough room so that when you fold this down you've got enough of a tail left to be able to insert Chicago screws. So turn it over to the back and you can lift it up if you just think that you need more at the front. So this is what it looks like from the back side, just like that. From the front side, this is what it looks like. So that little triangle is pushed in and I can see the wrong side. Turn it over, and what we're going to do is make sure that this flap is down. Now you shouldn't be able to see the top bit because it's on the other side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sew on the connector. Now I'm only going to sew across this top here, right across there. Now I do not want to sew off my connector, so I'm going to sew as far as my connector is. I'll draw a line. I'm going to sew it across that line, but I'm not going to go off the sides because you'll be able to see that. So you only want to sew as wide as your connector is. So go ahead and sew that. So right there. That's it. So that's where I've sewn, just across there. I haven't gone outside of my connector. So when I turn it over to the front side, you can see all my stitching is still on my connector. So get your rectangle ring or D-ring, whatever you're using, and put it seam to seam, and then what we're going to do is we're going to fold this edge here and we're going to fold it down here where we made that cutout. Fold this in and it should be a tight squeeze, and then you're going to come here. This is what we're pulling through. Pull it through as much as it'll go, and these tabs will line up here, and then from the front we now have our hidden strap connector. Next, what we want to do is you want to pull that as tight as you can get it, and you want to lift up. So leave that like that. We're going to lift this up, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew along here. I'll draw a line just there. We're going to sew. It's going to secure these. You want to sew as close to the top of that little cutout as you can, and just make sure that your connector is pulled as tight as you can get it, and that it looks good from this side, and then lift up, and this is where I'm going to sew right there. I'm going to have to turn it around this way though. And I'm just going backwards and forwards a bit just to try and further secure it, because the last thing that you need is it being returned because it's pulled out. So you don't want that. So then, as you can see, I've gone ahead and I've stitched that, and I've just done some reinforcement stitches. Now what you can do is you can choose to do this, you cannot do this, it's completely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a top stitch just under here to further secure it, and then I'm going to put some Chicago screws in to further secure that as well. So that's done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my rivet spacing template that I got from Brymax. I'm going to line that up at the top seam where our hidden strap connector is, and I'm going to mark 2 placements for my Chicago screw. So one there, and then I'll skip one and do one there. And then I can go ahead and put Chicago screws in there, and that will further secure it. And then I'm going to insert my Chicago screws. Next, what you want to do is you want to get the finished gusset, and we're going to line up the base with the bottom of our bag, and we're going to clip that right sides together. So your base should go along the very flat part of our bag. Just like that. And then we're going to sew that with the seam allowance given in the pattern. We're only sewing on the base. Then what we want to do is we're going to make small snips in the remainder of the gusset. So all up here and then all on the other side. You want to do them no higher than 1/8 of an inch and about 1/4 of an inch apart. So do that along all of the gusset, and this is going to help it curve into the bag. And what we're going to do is we're going to start wrapping this around our bag. So the pattern designer suggests doing one side at a time. So just lining all your edges up, and that's what these snips are helping with. So that's what it's looking like so far. Okay, so she suggests sew this on and then do your other side. So let's do that. Seam allowances given in the pattern. And it is suggested to backstitch well over the seams. Okay, that's one done. Wow, that was easy. And it is suggested to come in and do a second row of stitching. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a second row of stitching right beside the first one, just to further reinforce these seams. So that's one side done. So you can see, oh, look at that. Love it. Okay, and then we're going to do the second side. So we're going to repeat the same steps as we did before. We've got our gusset curving with the bag. I'm going to start from just here and come all the way up. So I'm starting where my base is. That's one done. Check that out. That looks amazing. And I'm going to do a second row of stitching right next to the first. While I'm here, I may as well go ahead and just put notches in my gusset before I start thinking about attaching the other end. So 1/8 of an inch high, about 1/4 of an inch apart. You can always come in and add more snips. You do not want to go too high because your seam allowance on this is not very large, and you risk the chance of cutting into your seam allowance, and that's not going to be good. They're all done, so you can set that to the side. That looks amazing. Next, you want your zipper. We're going to seal the ends of our zipper tape so it doesn't fray. We're going to do the 90-degree turn. So from the end of my zipper tape, I'm going to mark a line 1 inch in. And I'm using a heat erasing pen. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate my zipper, and where I did that line, I'm going to pinch it on that line. I'm then going to fold my teeth out to the right, and that pinch comes up underneath our zipper teeth. I'm going to pinch it in place, and then I'll baste this together. Again, I'm pinching it on that line, just like that. I'm pushing my zipper teeth to the left, and then that pinch mark that we made, so the line that we made, is sitting underneath our zipper teeth. I'm just going to put a pin in here for when I baste it together. I'm going to baste this along this raw edge here just to secure that, and then I can trim off the excess tape. Some people can do it with a lighter. I can't. It's never been successful for me. So once I've stitched it into place, I can remove my pin. I'm going to trim down that overhang, and because I've trimmed my zipper tape, I'm then going to heat seal it. Just like that. And I'm going to repeat for the other side. And that's secured. Next, you want your main panel. So from our side panels here, there's a mark that we need to make. So go ahead and transfer that mark as per the pattern. Then we're going to separate our zipper tape. Now what we're going to do is we're going to line up our zipper teeth along that edge. So my mark is there. I'm going to line up my zipper tape along that edge, starting where that mark is. And I'm going to start clipping this into place. I've got my zipper closing to the left, so the edge of my teeth are there. And we're going to clip this all the way along until we hit that other mark on the other end. And we're going to stop at that other mark that we made at the end. That's where our zipper is going to taper off. So that now is what that looks like. Okay, we're going to baste this on. Now when you get to that other mark, you want to stop. So that's what we're looking like now. And I've stopped where I've gotten to that mark there. And then we need to repeat for the other side. So we're going to have to put the other side on before I can go ahead and baste my zipper on. I'm just going to go ahead and sew this base here. That's done, and then we can start clipping our layers together. So we can start clipping this together. I'm going to do it exactly the same like I did before. I'm going to do one side and then come in like the pattern suggests and do the second side. That worked last time. So excited to see how this comes together, because normally with these type of bags they're bound, but this one's not, so I'm excited. I'm just going to clip the other side while I've got it, and then I'll do one side and then come back and do the other, and then we can baste our zipper on. This is my first circle bag that I've ever made. I tend to avoid circle bags because I'm not very good at sewing circles, but so far this one's been very good. Okay, so I'm going to start sewing this side here and then do my other side. This is a thick part here because that's where that seam is, but I'm just holding everything flat. I can't find my other screwdriver, so this one will do. I just want to hold this flat. And back stitch well, and then I will come in and do that second row of stitching just like the pattern suggests. Wow. This looks great. So I'm just coming in right next to the first lot of stitching that I did. There we go. And then I can do the other side. And then that, for the most part, is our exterior done. Back stitch over that seam, and there, back to the beginning. Looks great. And then I can come in for that second row right next to the first. And then while we're here, we can go ahead and do those markings for our zipper that we need to. We're going to mark what it says in the pattern, which is right there, and then the same on this side, right there, and then we can put our zipper on. So this time when we're basting our zipper on, so I've turned the bag right side out, your curve is going to be on the right hand side. So go ahead and line these edges up. We're going to start at that mark that we made and we're going to stop at the other end. It does say that you can put gentle snips into your zipper tape to help it go around the curve, but I'm going to avoid that at any cost, because then you do risk the chance of your zipper tape fraying, and you do not want that. So what I'm going to do is when I baste this into place, I'm going to start from this edge where we trail off our zipper. I'm going to start at that mark and baste all the way up here. Let's baste this on. I'm just laying my panel out flat. It might help to actually mark on your zipper tape where that start and stop point is, especially for this end, because this is going to be underneath your machine. So I've just put a mark there, and that's where I'll start. 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just take your time. You don't want to pull on that zipper tape though. can sit this to the side and we're going to start on our lining. I'm going to start with my small pocket. I'm going to put right sides together. I'm going to sew it around and leave a gap at the bottom. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to start here. All the way up the other side. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I'm using a fraying material. Trim these corners, and then I can turn this right sides out. And I can clip my bottom together. This is where I'll sew it up when I secure it to the bag. I'm going to top stitch this. Could add a piece of trim if you wanted to. It is only tiny though. On my lining, I've already gone ahead and found my centers. So we're just going to start with one piece. It gives us a measurement in the pattern of how far down to place this. So I'm just going to fold this in half. Find the center. I'm going to hold this in place while I top stitch it on. I won't divide this, I'll just leave it as this little pocket. But I'm going to back stitch really well where that seam is at the top. And then as I come along the bottom, this will secure that edge. Well, so there's one side done. There we have a little pocket. I've got a larger pocket here, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So right sides together. Just walking it off your fabric there is going to hopefully mean that when you turn this out there's less chance of this tearing if you've got that reinforcement stitch there. Just trimming the corners. Fold this out. Okay, again I'm going to fold in the bottom and that will get top stitched on my bag. I'm going to top stitch this edge. Because I am using a fairy zipper pull on this, I'm actually going to get a sewing label and I'm going to put it on the side. So I am going to use Magically Handmade. So sit that to the side. I'm getting my other lining piece. I'm going to place it in the same position as the other one. So find your center on the center of my pocket, just there. And this is where I'm going to stitch it really well on the ends. And I'm going to insert my woven label just on the side here. And then I'm top stitching here across the bottom. And that's our pockets done. You could also go ahead and, instead of adding 2 slip pockets, you could add a zipper pocket, you could add a cargo pocket. That is now my other pocket. So your 2 lining gussets, they're going to be wider at the top than they are at the bottom. You're going to put them right sides together and we're clipping the bottom together. And these get sewn with the seam allowance in the pattern. Just pay attention because this seam allowance is different to what we have previously been using. Then I'm going to open this up. I'm going to push my seams flat and then top stitch on either side of this seam. You can use double-sided tape or you could just hold it flat. Whatever works for you. Then we're going to repeat the same steps. So right sides together with our gusset, lining up our centres. It looks like the lining on this is sewn at a bigger seam allowance than what we used for the exterior, so just pay attention to that. So I'm going to sew across the bottom first, just like we did on the exterior. I won't need to worry about doing the 2 rows of stitching on my lining because it's going to be thin enough. I'm not worried about the seams pulling on that. But I'm going to come in and make the clips that we did before, 1/8 of an inch up, about 1/4 of an inch apart. And I may as well do it on the other side while I'm here. And then we can start clipping. And doing a bigger seam allowance on this is going to ensure that we've got a snug fit within our bag. No saggy lining. Bigger seam allowance. If it's easier for you to draw your seam allowance, go ahead and do that. I often do that. There we go, there's one side done. When I attach my other side, I'm going to clip the base together, but I'm not sewing it because that will become my turning hole for the bag. So you need to leave one side of your lining, the base unsewn, so we can turn the bag through that, and then we stitch that up at the end. Whatever side you prefer, do it that way. That's one side done. That's what that's looking like. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the other side, but again I'm going to leave my base clipped but completely unsewn. And because I did use foam, I'm going to need every little bit of that turn hole left open. I'll do this side first, and I'm just going to start just where that base is. So I started my stitching just there. So this base is completely unsewn. Just keep your seams as flat as possible. So the whole base is open. So we've got this room to turn the bag. Oh, good luck. We're going to put the exterior in the lining. So you need to work out which one you want to be the front and which one you want to be the back. That's the front of my bag. So I think I'm putting that in. So you want to fit your exterior inside your lining. You're going to have to squeeze it because obviously your lining is going to be smaller. So match up your centers and start clipping all around your zipper. So what I've done is I've just folded this seam in. I've matched up my side gusset pieces with my side exteriors. I'm lining up all of my centers, all of my edges, my lining edge and my gusset edge here, and then the same on the other side. So I'm matching up my gusset edges first. Tuck that in out of the way. So you're just going to have to squish it to manipulate it to get it to line up. There we go. I'm just lining all these together. I've pushed my zipper tape down here towards my exterior out of the way so we don't get that sewn. And I'm lining up these edges. And I'm pushing my zipper tape down so it sits flat. Do not want that zipper tape poking up. You want that as flat as possible. So there's one side clipped. So now I'm going to come line up, match up my centers. I'm going to start clipping from there to the outside. And I'm making sure that that zipper tape is flat and pushed out of the way. You don't want to get that in the seam. So I've just pushed it out of the way on itself, but again, you still want that flat. Any excess material that you have, you just want to come in, distribute that as evenly as you can. You don't want any bubbles in that zipper tape. That's what we have so far. Okay, now we've got to sew this up. I'm going to attempt to start at one of the side panels and then work my way out to one of the curves. You are going to need to squish your bag to get this to work. I think this will be the easiest way. So now that I'm there, I'm going to turn and start sewing here, which is where my curve is, and I'm going to back stitch over that. We want to be so very careful because this is where our zipper is. And I can't even really hold that flat because I did it this way, but I'm not worried about my lining poking up. I can trim that down. Okay, so now that I'm here, I'm going to come across, back stitch. I might be able to do this in a full circle. Back stitch over that seam, and now I'm going to start coming up here. I'm not worrying about my lining at this stage. Like I said, I'm not worried about that poking up. I trim that down. I'm following my outside of my exterior. Now we're back to where the other seam is, so just lift it up. Okay, I'm just going to pull it off. I'm going to check the best I can my zipper. It feels good. It feels like it's out of the way. Doesn't feel like it's come up at all. Some places I didn't do my full seam allowance, so I'm going to do a second row of stitching. So I'm going to start the way that I did before on my exterior, and I'm going to start in the middle of my side panel, and this time I'm making sure I'm doing my full seam allowance, and nothing is going to shift because we've already sewn it, hopefully. Back stitching over that seam. And we're back to the beginning. We're done. Right, moment of truth. We're going to turn this right sides out. So we're turning the bag through that hole that we left in our lining. So I'm trying to pull my lining up over my exterior. Yay! We got it! Push your lining into your bag. I'm just clipping the sides. I'm just trying to roll out my seams away from our zipper. So once I've gone ahead and rolled all my seams out, I'm going to make sure my lining fits. Alright, push my lining into my bag. Oh, fits amazing. So that's going to be the lining. Okay, now we've got a top stitch. So I've just turned that back wrong side out, and this is where we're going to top stitch from. There. Let's do this. Just a little bit nervous because it's really thick right here. What I think I'm going to have to do is just use my hump jumper. I just don't want to tear that vinyl, so I can use this vinyl behind my foot so that I don't tear it as I come back down, and start top stitching here. Okay, so here is where it's going to start to climb up to that seam. So I'm going to put this behind it and then just readjust as I need to come. There we go. Up, and then keep that there so I don't tear my vinyl while I come down this side. And we're done. Alrighty, let's turn this right side out. I didn't do too bad, I don't think. Wow, that's done. Let's sew up our lining and then we can put our zipper pull on. So you just want to fold these in on each other and top stitch. So I'm just top stitching that bottom. And then we can push our lining all the way back in. Fits perfectly. Then we can put our zipper pull on. Oh wow. So when you put that zipper pull on, that is what makes the bag the shape that it is. Oh, look at that. Oh, that is awesome. How cute is that? Putting that zipper pull on certainly gave the bag the shape. And that zipper pull is just so cute. And then we can put on our zipper end. There's our zipper end on. Got our pockets here. And we can put our handles on. Here it is. I finally got my handles on. And don't they look amazing? I love the shape of this bag. It is so unique. I love these pockets as well. It was a really nice sew. It didn't stress me to do it. The final top stitching, it would be easier if you had a cylinder arm, but I really didn't struggle that much. There was a corner here that I had to go back in, but apart from that, I'm so happy with everything that I chose in terms of interfacing. I would definitely make another one of these. This is the base. It's soft, but it's still stable, and the zipper, when you add it to this bag, just makes it amazing. Gives it its shape. The inside of this bag, the gusset fit amazingly, and we've got our 2 slip pockets here. Looks fantastic. I love this bag. I'm so very thankful that the designer reached out and asked me to test this pattern, because circle bags scare me. But I absolutely am so happy with how this turned out. So I hope you make one as well. If you do, please join my Facebook group and share a picture and let me know how you went with it. There's nothing that I'll change. I love these pockets. I really do. There's the back side of the bag. I love this tree. I'm so happy that I kept this vinyl for a specific project, and this happened to be it. And then the little tree fairy door zipper pull just fits in perfectly. So thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day, and I'll catch you all on the next video. Bye.